Hello and welcome to UzReport World News, and my name is Bahram Ghafarov. The total external debt of Uzbekistan in the first 9 months of 2020 maintained the growth trend and amounted to $29.3 billion, according to data revealed by the country's central bank on December 17th. Compared to the beginning of the year, it grew by 19.7% or $4.8 billion. This process is explained by the attraction of new external borrowings to mitigate the socio-economic impact of the crisis caused by the spread of the COVID-19 virus and the financing of the state programs for the development of economic sectors and regions, the regulator says. External debt comprises public and private debt. The first made up $18.7 billion, having soared by $2.9 billion, with the second increasing by $1.9 billion to $10.6 billion. France, Rangers International Market and the Republic of Uzbekistan have signed a framework agreement to create a network of wholesale markets. In a virtual ceremony last week, Samaris, which manages Rangers International Market in Paris and is a global operator of agri-logistical infrastructure, agreed to provide its expertise to the Uzbek Ministry of Agriculture for the creation of a network of wholesale markets in Uzbekistan. The fully integrated network will be labeled Rangers International. Through 8 modern hubs, Rangers International will be able to handle more than 3 million tons of goods by 2022. The art of miniature is included in the representative list of intangible cultural heritage of UNESCO. This decision was made as a 15th session of the Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage of UNESCO on December 16.
The miniature art nomination for inclusion in the representative list was jointly presented by Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, Iran and Turkey.
Inclusion in the UNESCO representative list of the art of miniature is an international recognition of this art form, which has a long history and which reached its peak in Uzbekistan. It was noted that the Uzbek school of miniature, with many bright and outstanding artists such as Kamaluddin Behzod, has remained one of the strongest and most famous in the world for many centuries.
Cochrane Siemens, a global research agency in the field of higher education, has published the list of best universities in emerging Europe and Central Asia 2021. It includes 400 best universities in the region, including 4 universities from Uzbekistan.
Compared to the previous year, the number of Uzbek universities in the regional ranking increased from 1 to 4. Tashkent Institute of Irrigation and Agriculture Mechanization Engineers, Mirza Ulugh National University, Samarkand State University, and Tashkent State Technical University. Ben Sauter, director of the QS Analytical Center, says that this year, Uzbek universities have expanded their presence in the regional ranking largely due to the systematic work carried out by the Ministry of Higher and Secondary Special Education and Universities of the Republic of Uzbekistan. We highly appreciate the work of the government and the ministry to improve the global competitiveness of the higher education system and increase the recognition of the country's universities in international academic circles, he said.
Due to the coronavirus effect, the number of families receiving social benefits in Uzbekistan has doubled by the end of 2020. Deputy Finance Minister Ahadbek Haydarov announced that during the fiscal year-end briefing.
Haydarov said that the ministry's 2020 forecast to cover 600,000 families with allowances had been disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic that brought many people to the brink of poverty. The presidential decrees have increased the number of recipients of social benefits in April and June. In addition, we have extended and simplified the requirements for receiving benefits that brought the number of needy families to 1.2 million year to date, the deputy minister said. He also noted the government has preserved the number of families receiving benefits from the state budget in 2021. The ministry will create a social register that will set a rule of payments by meticulously studying all factors, concluded Haydarov. A recent report presented by UNICEF specifically underlines the lack of a unified government strategy for social protection in Uzbekistan. According to the document, 52% of poor households in Uzbekistan are not provided by any aid from the national social protection system.
The volume of shuttle trading in Uzbekistan in 9 months has almost come to zero, amounting to only $89 million. The data was provided by the Central Bank of Uzbekistan on a brief overview of the balance of payments for the first half of 2020.
According to a report, Last year, this figure was $375.8 million for the same period. The Uzbekistan's money regulator says the border closure during the quarantine has been a major factor for the decline. In 2018, Uzbek vendors' trade turnover exceeded $1 billion, where imported goods had a lion's share, reaching staggering $842.9 million. An export made up only 1/4 of that amount, i.e., $213.2 million. But even then, the volume has begun to shrink, which coincided with the tightening rules on import.
US President Donald Trump is hardening his approach to China just weeks before he's due to leave office. Reuters sources say Trump is set to add dozens of Chinese companies to a trade blacklist for their alleged ties to the military, including the country's top chip maker, SMIC. It means the company will need to have a special license from the Commerce Department before a US supplier can send it goods. In total, 80 companies are expected to be targeted, nearly all of them Chinese. According to sources, some are accused of helping Beijing construct and militarize artificial islands in the South China Sea, while others are said to have had a role in alleged human rights abuses against China's Uyghur minority. Companies already on the list include the telecoms giant Huawei and the surveillance camera maker Hikvision. SMIC has repeatedly said it has no ties to China's military, but it's already been in Washington's crosshairs. Last month, the Defense Department effectively banned Americans from buying shares in the chipmaker from late next year. China's foreign ministry urged the US on Friday to end what it called an unjustified crackdown on Chinese companies.
To rapturous applause from hospital staff, Daniel Kim stood up and walked out of St. Jude Medical Center on Wednesday, feeling lucky to be alive. The 49-year-old was hospitalized in Fullerton, California over the summer after contracting COVID-19. He spent 5 months there, the longest ever for a coronavirus patient at the medical center, and 2 of those months on a ventilator. But on Wednesday, with the help of a walker and an oxygen tank, he was finally able to go home.
Right after I came out of coma, I never thought I could actually walk out like this. But, I walked out today.
Kim says he knew his odds of surviving were low. He is diabetic, suffers from hypertension, and was overweight when he was diagnosed with COVID-19.
Before I actually got this virus, it was just something on the news. Okay, I gotta wear my mask. Oh, okay, I gotta wash my hand. But after I really got it, it really came real to me. Oh wow, this is a very dangerous and life-threatening virus. I couldn't have known that other than me really getting it.
Kim was not alone throughout his journey. Doctors, nurses, and therapists were by his side, as was his sister Julie, who was a registered nurse at St. Jude Medical Center.
That I was going to lose the only brother I have. I was really scared, and I was very anxious. There were some very scary moments.
Dr. Michael Katz, critical care specialist at St. Jude Medical Center, witnessed Kim's ordeal and says his recovery is a sign of hope.
I think this is a situation where one person's journey can speak for, can represent the plight of hundreds of thousands of people at this point. And it really tells the story. It's somehow easier to connect with one person's experience than just seeing all of the numbers as we do on TV. And in this way, Daniel's recovery is hope.
Kim is learning how to walk again and is grateful to have another chance at everything.
I'm gonna be mindful of places I go, things I eat, things I speak. Just gonna have a different perspective in life.
The U.S. has taken its campaign against Chinese telecoms underwater. Sources have exclusively told Reuters that Washington has warned Pacific Island nations against accepting a cut-price offer to build an undersea internet cable in the Pacific from China's Huawei Marine. It's a nearly $73 million project, bankrolled in part by the World Bank, designed to give an internet boost to Nauru, Micronesia, and Kiribati. The sources say Washington flagged its concerns to Micronesia, a move that sparked an angry response from China's foreign ministry.
美方的 Relevant remarks made by the U.S. are purely a smear of Chinese firms. It is an excuse fabricated for unreasonably suppressing Chinese high-tech firms.
Another of the countries involved, Nauru, has also signaled concern, although the third, Kiribati, has taken a more favorable approach after establishing formal diplomatic ties with China last year. Chinese telecoms companies have come under scrutiny abroad, especially giant Huawei Technologies. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration has pressured allies to squeeze the company out of future infrastructure projects. Huawei actually divested Huawei Marine earlier this year, but it's still a Chinese company and required by law to cooperate with Beijing's intelligence and security services. The cable project could be especially risky for Washington. According to plans, it would connect to another undersea cable used primarily by the U.S. government, which lands at the U.S. territory of Guam, an important base for the military. Huawei Marine's bid came in at more than 20% below rivals, and that low cost puts it in a good position to win. But the project is now at an impasse, according to the sources, as the countries and agencies involved fail to agree on the best way forward.
Hundreds of people in Sydney waited for hours on Friday to get tested for COVID-19. Authorities are on high alert after a new cluster of infections was detected in New South Wales. 28 cases have been linked to Sydney's northern coastal suburbs, but health officials have been unable to determine the source of the infections, raising fears that the cluster could spread. State Premier Gladys Berejiklian has urged people to be diligent.
So everybody in Greater Sydney needs to be on high alert. If you have the mildest of symptoms, please get tested and isolate. But also, can everybody please think about their activity? Nobody should be getting on public transport without wearing a mask. Nobody in Greater Sydney should be going to a supermarket, a place of worship, or other high-risk areas without wearing a mask.
Australian states and territories started reimposing border restrictions on Friday, causing disruption to thousands of people's Christmas travel plans. It's also a blow for the economy and domestic tourism operators. Until this week, Australia had gone more than 2 weeks without any local transmission.
Authorities in Fiji said on Friday that at least 2 people have died in the aftermath of Cyclone Yasa, including a 3-month-old baby. The top Category 5 storm made landfall over the Pacific Island nation Thursday evening. Its torrential rains and almost 200-mile-per-hour winds left a trail of destruction and caused widespread flooding. In a video posted on Facebook, Fiji's prime minister said almost 100,000 Fijians were affected, and the island expects hundreds of millions of dollars in damages. Authorities said they were scrambling to help affected communities, but waves more than 10 feet high have prevented rescue missions from reaching the more vulnerable islands in the north. Scores of houses have been destroyed, while power was cut to some areas and roads blocked by fallen trees and flash flooding. Fiji declared a state of natural disaster on Thursday, and a nighttime curfew remains in place, as there are still concerns about heavy rains. Yasa is now a Category 2 storm moving south across the island chain.
Reuters is reporting exclusively that Microsoft was hacked as part of a suspected Russian campaign that has hit multiple U.S. government agencies by taking advantage of the widespread use of software from SolarWinds Corp. It was not immediately clear how many Microsoft users were affected by the tainted products. The U.S. Energy Department also said they have evidence hackers gained access to their networks as part of the massive cyber campaign. This news comes as the Department of Homeland Security said earlier Thursday that the hackers used multiple methods of entry and that it is continuing to investigate the matter. SolarWinds said up to 18,000 of its customers had downloaded a compromised software update that allowed hackers to spy unnoticed on businesses and agencies for almost 9 months. So far, the attackers are known to have at least monitored email or other data within the U.S. Departments of Defense, State, Treasury, Homeland Security, and Commerce. Top senators in Congress are seeking answers into the hacking attack and whether the data of millions of American taxpayers was compromised. In a statement released Thursday, President-elect Joe Biden said he would, quote, elevate cybersecurity as an imperative across the government. and disrupt and deter our adversaries from undertaking such major hacks.
Optimism over a coronavirus stimulus bill drove Wall Street to record highs Thursday. The Nasdaq shot up 0.8%. The S&P 500 and Dow added roughly 0.5%. The buying extended to Bitcoin, which jumped to another all-time high one day after topping $20,000. In Washington, top Republicans and Democrats drew closer to agreeing on a fresh round of aid in response to the health crisis. Comprehensive Wealth Management President John Vento says the relief package is foremost in investors' minds.
My belief is that the number one priority, in addition to the coronavirus vaccine, of course, is going to be providing additional stimulus to the United States, especially small businesses that seem to be suffering significantly, and as well all those unemployed individuals so that their unemployment benefits could be extended.
Leading the S&P, Lennar with a 7% gain. Quarterly profit and revenue beat analysts' targets as the home builder benefited from a strong U.S. housing market. Rite Aid shares soared nearly 18%, snapping a 4-day losing streak. The drugstore operator lifted its targets next year for revenue, profit, and same-store sales. But shares of Google parent Alphabet dipped. A group of 38 U.S. states and territories filed an antitrust complaint accusing the company of trying to extend its search monopoly to dominate smart speakers, TVs, and cars. Separately, Google won the blessing of EU regulators for its $2.1 billion bid for the wearable devices maker Fitbit.
So far, these were the latest news for today. Goodbye. Take care.